Warning: TipTea podcast contains adult content. Also, trigger warning for today's episode of TipTea as we discuss domestic violence and the life experience of being a Black trans woman in America. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to TipTea Podcast. Tonight, joining me are two lovely ladies. First is my lovely co-host, Layla Ziadich. Hello.
Hi.
And today we have a special guest for you guys, my friend, Gabrielle Ine.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi, how y'all doing?
We're doing good. We're doing great. So,
I don't need to I won't introduce myself to Robert. I've known Robert for a long time, so.
How long have you all known each other?
Oh my gosh. Robert, how long would you say?
Like 4 or 5 years, I think.
Wow.
You sure it hasn't been longer than that?
Maybe longer. I mean, because we had that time where we weren't really talking, and then we reconnected.
Life was happening for us. Yeah, and we were just
maybe it was 6. Maybe it's 6 years. Maybe it was a little bit before I met Tim, because Tim and I have been together for 6 years. So
I'd say 6 for sure.
Okay, maybe it's 6. Yeah. But we had like you said, we were just living our lives, and then recently reconnected and got closer than we were when we started. So
Absolutely.
But to kind of give our viewers a little background. So today we are going to be talking about Black trans lives. And I wanted to bring Gabrielle on the show today to kind of dive deep with us, kind of get really into the thick of matters. So to start off with, I just kind of want you to give us a little bit of information about yourself, kind of as much as you feel comfortable giving us, going back and telling us everything that you feel comfortable telling us, to where you are today.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm really excited. Any chance that I get to, especially as an activist now for the Black Trans Lives Matter movement, as a Black trans woman myself, I always get excited to be able to do things like this and connect with people and utilize my voice and visibility to, for it to be a teaching moment, And so diving right in, and Layla and Robert, feel free, if you all have questions as I'm going through to kind of guide it, please don't hesitate to jump in and be so wait, da-da-da-da,
Okay.
But yes, my name is Gabrielle Ine. I am a Black trans woman. I have been actually transitioning now, August 28th. I came up on my 2 years of my transition.
Wow.
And then prior to that, of course, I was living my life as an effeminate gay male. Me and Robert knew each other, so Robert knew me during those times. And I think that, one of the main questions that I get to from a lot of people is, what made you transition, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
what was a turning point for you that made you say, you know what, I'm actually transgender. The reality of it is though, that I have known that I was trans for quite some time, dating back to early childhood. I came out to my family as gay, which was really and honestly a safe blanket for me at that time, because I didn't have the verbiage. I didn't know what trans was, at a younger age. I knew that I was different. Even at that time, I knew that I loved dressing in women's clothing, and I was really enamored with heels and beauty and things like that, which, typically was not the things that my male peers were into. You know, none of my male cousins were like, you know, into that. But, you know, I was really like obsessed with it. And so for me, when I came out, like I said, at the age of 13, it was like a safe space for me. I was just like, okay, well, like, this is the first step. I'm going to dip my toe in the water, so to speak, you know? I didn't have the verbiage for it, like I said. And so I didn't know what trans was. I didn't know that there were also steps that one could take to perform or like change their gender either. I mean, I had no one at the time.
So question. So like
yes.
so growing up, like you said, you didn't know that, you didn't have the verbiage or explanation for, what trans was. So I guess the closest thing to that is being gay. So, I mean, do you just feel like you kind of just gravitated towards that because that's the closest thing, that you could understand? Like, because at a time at childhood, you're like, you know, I feel like I'm different, but like you said, you don't really know, you didn't have the verbiage for that. So I'm assuming that was like the closest for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was the closest thing for me. Like I was seeing at that age, I was seeing like gay people on TV, and I was like, you know, seeing, you know, somewhat effeminate gay guys too. And I was like, okay, well, I act like that, so I must just be, you know, gay. Like I was just like, I must be just gay. And so, like I said, it was a very safe space for me to like utilize that. And like I said, just dip my toe into that community, if you will, and just come out, you know, to my family and be like, you know, this is what it is. Now, even before coming out, I will say that I had a troubled upbringing prior to that. Like I said, I was always like a very effeminate child. Mm-hmm. And my, you know, raised in a single mother home. My father was incarcerated often, in and out of jail. And so, you know, with my effeminate qualities, my mother would always, you know, blame the fact that my father was not in my life for some of the tendencies that I had. And I would be punished for some of the tendencies that I had in my childhood and up to that moment. And then when I came out as gay, like I said, as far as that like little safety blanket, that was like my first step out into, you know, who I was. It was like downhill from there. Like I couldn't do anything, couldn't have friends over, was pushed into sports, Boy Scouts, church heavily. You know, my mother was a devout Catholic. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like it became very difficult for me to truly like live my life. And like I lived a very sheltered childhood for sure.
So yeah. Like your mother kind of like in a way like isolated you. Like
yeah, she isolated me. And you know what, she even in that isolation too, I remember like, you know, even as a child, like you're thinking, like when I think back to it, I'm like, I'm having arguments with like my mother that at my age I should not be having. You know, and like talking about things that I couldn't even comprehend. And like, I just remember her like also blaming herself, but also blaming me for who I was becoming at the time. Mm-hmm. So imagine the guilt and shame that I was feeling as a child and going through that with like no mental support. You know, I'm being raised without any siblings, without any other siblings, mm-hmm. single mother household. And just feeling that every day and like coming home to that every single day. Like every single day for me was like hell. I won't even lie to you. Like it was hell having to come home and like deal with that level of in-house oppression from your own parent. You know, it was insane.
Yeah. And I mean, it kind of just like you were having to be an adult and take on an adult role and do that when you're a child, which A, isn't fair to you, but B, you know, based on circumstances, it just like, I'm sure your mom probably just didn't know what to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Being a single mother, like, yeah, that just puts you just in a horrible position.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that I had to grow up really, really quickly. Unfortunately, as a child, and then as a young adult, I had to grow up really quickly and had to do a lot, and learn a lot on my own. I will say, like, as I grew up throughout my teen and teenage years, I did falter a lot, and I did a lot of things that I probably should not have done, and like put myself in danger as far as like going out and like meeting guys and like sneaking out the house and things like that, because I was so sheltered. But I felt like I had to do those things to actually like get to know and learn myself. But at the same time, when I think back to it, my growth was stunted,
Mm-hmm.
in a way. And it hindered me throughout my teenage years. And I think it followed me into majority of my adulthood life as well, unfortunately. And we'll get into it like a little bit more of it later. But yeah, like I'm just now actually really, learning how to deal and cope with certain things and so forth.
I have a question. Who were you connecting with during the time? So you said you grew up as an only child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who did you connect with, like on a more personal level, or were you more independent?
I was
Go
definitely
ahead.
more independent. I was definitely more independent. Like I had cousins and things like that when we had family gatherings. And younger kids and like younger cousins around us, they don't really like, we're all kids. Like we don't really ask questions. There were some moments like, yeah, I was picked on and things like that. Or I was asked questions of like, why do you talk like that? Or why do you act like that? But at the same time, and throughout all of it, I will say that, by my cousins and by other kids around me, I was, embraced. And then like, even in my teenage years, like, in high school, like people are always like, oh, like, did you get bullied and things like that? Surprisingly, I really didn't have a lot of issues with like bullying, because the thing of it was like, I had already came out. I came out to my family when I was 13 and told them like, I was gay. I like men,
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like lived in that truth and that rebellion of that truth through high school. And my biggest thing was like, you can't call me a gay slur because I know that I'm that gay slur. So it does nothing to me, So it was like everyone knew me at the time. It was like, oh yeah, like, at the time they're just like, oh yeah, he's gay. Like, and I'm like, yeah, I am, And like people are like, all right, cool, whatever. Like there was nothing really to it. And I think I carried myself with, again, having to grow up so quickly and be kind of like my own support system. I think I carried myself in a way that people had no choice but to respect it.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Absolutely.
That's kind of like my high school experience. Like you said, like once I came out, just kind of owning it to where, when somebody would say something like that, you just like, yeah, I am, like, okay.
Like what next? What
next? Come on, can you tell me something I don't know?
Tell me something else, because you're probably going to be, I don't know how vulgar we can get on here, but
yeah,
please.
Go ahead.
Please.
Like, you can call me all these names all you want to, but at the end of gym class, you're probably going to be trying to get me to like put my mouth on your dick, like after gym class,
Exactly.
Or insinuating to me doing that for you. So it's just like, yeah, like, come on. Yeah. Do you really want to play this game?
So a question that so you come out at the age of 13, mm-hmm. and, you're kind of owning that gay experience. So when's like the first time you're like, okay, it's more than being gay. I'm definitely more different. This is more than just that.
I think it would have to be like my first sexual experience. And my first sexual experience with a guy, I was 16 and he was 18. And I remember it. It's like, I look back on it and I'm like, oh my God, Gabby, like that was so shameful. But I lost my virginity in a car, in the front seat of a car, actually, with an older guy. Like I said, I was 16, he was 18. And yeah, like we went to school together and like it was very like secretive and down low. And I knew at that point, like I think afterwards, and I won't even lie to, and I'm like very open and candid, so y'all can ask me anything. We can talk about anything. I think for me at that time, I had also had what we call like a gay mother, and she was a trans woman at the time, right? So this is the first trans person I had ever gotten to know at 16.
Okay,
and I adored her. Like I just was like, oh my God, like. And there was like just a connection that I had with her, but also like she stepped into my life as a mother that I didn't have, you know, like she would get me things that I needed. She would buy me clothes. Like, you know, I wanted like heels and like girls' clothes and like she would buy them and I would hide them. And like,
how old was she?
Ariana, her name was Ariana. Ariana was at the time, probably mid-20s.
Okay.
Yeah, probably like mid-20s. Super passable, like gorgeous, and like known in the community, you know. I knew at that time, like, I was just like, okay, like this is real. Like having conversations with her about like the sex that I had had. And I was just like, and I remember her asking me, like, she was like, well, did he use a condom? And I was like, no, you know, and like, she really like, came down on me and was like, no, you cannot be doing this. Like, you have to have safe and protected sex. Like, too much shit is out here. You need to take care of yourself, blah, 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 blah. I remember, like, her buying me at that time. And, like, again, mind you, I'm 16 years old. She bought me this dildo, like this this vibrator, actually, like this big black vibrator.
Hell yeah.
You know, and like she's like teaching me, she's like, you know, you put the condom on like this. If you have to put it on for him, you know, da 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 da. And like, you know, that was the first like conversation that I had about sex. Like, but before knowing anything about it, like I just walked right into it and did it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that was also like the first guy too that I was like really attracted to. And like, unfortunately, what it ended up happening with that situation was he had just, you know, used me for the experience, you know?
Yeah.
And
so,
that was my first heartbreak, but.
Was he wasn't out, I'm assuming.
No, he was not out. Yeah, he was not out. And he identified as straight. And to this day, I think he still identifies as straight, but.
Wow.
But we know the truth.
Well, we know the truth. We know the tea.
We know the tea.
We know the tea. And so, yeah, so like that really, I think at that time too, like that really fucked me up. Like, because I thought that like by giving myself to this guy that, you know, and mind you, at that age too, 2 years into like being out and gay, I think that at that time, you know, I am searching for a love that I didn't have at home, you know. I didn't have my father, you know, I didn't have a relationship with my father. So I am seeking and like talking to older men, especially, you know, a lot of that was happening at that age for me at 16. Like I was talking to older men. And I thought that shit was like cool. And I thought it was hot. And like, I thought I was hot to trot. And like, but, you know, again, thinking back to that, like a lot of that was due to the neglect and the pain that I felt of not having that relationship with my father, not having that relationship with my mother, not having that relationship with my family. So I was seeking love in all the wrong places, right?
Yeah.
And I will say, like, even in having that conversation with Ariana about like what not to do as far as sex and things like that, I still faltered going forward because, again, I was so gung-ho and so caught up in wanting to be loved, and falling for men that just simply did not care, you know?
Well, yeah, and I mean, not to break away from the subject, but there's this total thing of, with um, sex and just like safe sex and a condom and like this whole stigma of like, okay, well, if you don't let me have sex with you without a condom, then you don't trust me, or like things like that. So like there's this total stigma with that. So I totally get what you're saying. And to say that to somebody that's kind of seeking love that way, you're obviously gonna be like, yeah, like I like fall for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was from, I will say, anywhere from 16 to 21. That was my thing, like I was just like, yeah, like I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, I wanted to be impressive, and I thought that's what it was, and I thought that is how you gained the love of men and partners, is being impressive and kind of like making them happy. There was never a point during those years of my life that I was just like, all right, we're going to put you first, your safety first, your heart first, your mind first,
Yeah.
It was always about the other person.
So you got the dildo.
I got the dildo, and mind you, like I said, I had got the dildo after, having my first sexual experience. And so I had that for a while. And I remember, though, I didn't have it too long because my mother ended up finding it.
Oh my God.
Oh, fuck.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh
yeah.
my God. Literally my nightmare.
Nightmare, literal nightmare. So like already, like it's just like, okay, well, already like she's having trouble grappling with the fact that I'm gay, and I'm also being rebellious in a sense that like like I said, I was sneaking out and doing whatever the fuck I wanted to do. Even at that time before finding the dildo, she was already like taking clothes of mine and like heels of mine and like throwing them away and like burning them and making me watch her burn them. And like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, like just crazy stuff, like doing all the craziest shit. And so then she found that. I remember her at the time, she had a boyfriend at the time. I remember his name was Martin. And like, he was like this aggressive, dominant guy. He had a son of his own as well. Split custody. So, like he would come over to our house and like stay weekends and things like that, and then go back to his house and shit like that. And I remember like him trying to take on that father role, but I will say that it was like a very inappropriate relationship that he had with me, in that, especially like after my mother like found the dildo and then kind of like used him in that altercation and that interaction, it kind of like spiraled. And so, at that time, I'm going on 17 years of age. And again,
You're still young during all this.
I'm still young during all of it. Very impressionable,
Yeah, very impressionable in like early years for you while you're developing mentally and physically. And it sounds like you had a lot of, I mean, I like to use this word, but you can change it up, a trauma. Like I consider that traumatic, like some of the things that you're describing.
Oh yeah, a lot of trauma in my younger years. And like we didn't go back like even further, but like back into my childhood. But this wasn't the first time that I had been like sexually assaulted, unwanted by a male figure in my life. And I remember like telling my mother, and like she didn't believe me, and she put me out. And at that point, I went to stay with Ariana, and I stayed with her for a bit and did my best to finish high school. And I wanted to say that I stayed with Ariana for a couple months and then went back home because my mother like called like begging and like, you know, she would do these things even throughout like all of our arguments and stuff. Like she would, you know, apologize and then step back into my life and come back. And like, she still like, even in that moment, she just kind of like blamed it on me, like for what happened to me. Like she always like blamed everything on me. Like everything was my fault that happened. And she was like, well, you know, if you weren't, and like, it's so interesting. It's kind of like, you know, how girls are sexualized, you know, it was just kind of like, well, if you weren't gay and like doing this, then, you know, this probably wouldn't happen to you and all this other stuff. And like a lot of shame and guilt around my identity at the time. So, you know, I'm going through that traumatic, like you said, I'm going through that trauma, dealing with that trauma on my own.
Victim shaming.
There's a lot of victim shaming there. And already, you know, I'm just like feeling really low about myself, and not knowing, you know, what to do or which way to go. You know, and at that point too, like I was older. And so like she started to get physical with me and like trying to like fight and do all these other things. And it was insane. Mm-hmm. Like it was crazy. And I, you know, I stuck with that shit and I dealt with that shit, you know, through 17 up until 18, you know, graduated high school. And after graduating high school, I left. Like I ran. You know, there's a documentary that I just watched about Dominique Jackson. Yes, Dominique Jackson on Hulu. And it was so like, it just really like stuck with me when she was talking about her experiences, you know, throughout her childhood. And like, when she was talking about all the times throughout her life that she just heard the word run, like that is like what I experienced. And I know like after high school, like that is one of the words that just clicked with me, like run. And that is what I did. And so I got involved heavily in like the ballroom community and the ball scene. If you watch Pose, or if you've seen Paris is Burning, then you kind of like know what that is. But I ran to that community, and that is honestly where I found, you know, family outside of like Ariana, you know, and Ariana kind of like introduced me to that gay family as well, you know, the Valentinos. And that's where I found, you know, sadly, like when you think about it, like that's where I had to go to find family and find safety was the ballroom community. And, you know, I ran away and I was staying with a friend of mine and his mom, and like, we would party and hang out and drink and smoke and do all these things. Cause his mom was like, his mom was a stripper. Like she was cool as shit, like gave no fucks, you know, which, you know, could be a catch-22 and like, you know, could be bad and good at the same time when you think about it as young adults. And just, I was just like really out here living life. Like, yeah, I was working at the time, like had a job, working in retail, and was really just out here, like just out here, y'all. And like thinking back on it, like, yeah, like, wow, like, I'm just like, wow, like that was really dangerous. You know, like some of the shit that I was doing, like, you know, some of the drugs and like the partying and like staying up and like then going to work and being hungover and like coming out and doing it again and like going to balls and like traveling and all this other stuff. And getting into trouble, you know, with the police and shit like that. Like it was a time.
Yeah. But I mean, you're finding like, that's the real first community that you have. And like, so you cling to that, like, right? Like you deal with all that other stuff because at the end of the day, this is like the first time like you feel like you have a sense of community, and that's so important to us. Like we want to feel like we belong, we want to feel welcomed. And so you're saying that the stuff, yes, at the end of the day, it may have been risky, but I mean, I don't think you give yourself enough credit that like, A, you were dealing with some shit
Yeah.
And B, you're trying to find yourself. I mean, you're doing what you have to do to survive.
Absolutely. You know, and I love that you use that word survive. Because I will say, you know, and a lady never tells her age, right? I will say that I'm in my 30s. But, you know, up until 2 years ago, my whole entire life was built. And even sometimes now, like I still find myself in survival mode, you know, because that's all I know. And so it's kind of like for me, when I run into certain situations, it's either like fight or flight.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've grown so tired and weary over my life in having to do certain things or, you know, dealing with bullshit that a lot of times I just fly, you know, and I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this. But survival is a good word. Like you said, you know, you're learning to survive and you're forced to survive while trying to, you know, find out who it is that you are with no actual support group, you know, because I'm around people that, they may be family to me and I look at them as family, but we're all in this shit surviving together. So beyond the point of hanging out and getting drunk and doing drugs together, like what actual support are we providing to one another other than the feeling of comfort, right? But and that's great. Like comfort is great and like love is great, but like beyond that, like how are we supporting each other? You know, no one was telling me to, you know, that Gabby, you don't, you know, need to stay out, which at the time my name was different. My name was Paris at the time, but you know, they're like, you know, you need to be at home. You have to go to work tomorrow. You know, you got to do this. You should be doing this at this time, you know, with your life. I didn't have the tools and no one to like tell me those things. That didn't happen until like my mid 20s, you know?
Yeah. So I kind of want to delve into like, okay, so we have the Black Lives Matter movement, and then I don't know exactly when, but that kind of shifted into the Black Trans Lives Matter. So can you kind of explain towards the viewers, because I mean, I totally get why adding trans lives into that is important, but like listeners that are listening right now may have not had a trans person in their life or have had to deal with that. So like, can you kind of explain to us, like, what's the importance behind saying not only Black Lives Matter, but Black Trans Lives Matter?
Absolutely. So let's dive into, like I said, I've been, you know, living my trans life as a Black trans woman for, you know, 2 years now and some months. You know, and realizing that I was trans, which was just something that I had suppressed for so long that I realized that, you know, I had been suppressing it for so long. And a lot of that was due to the fact that there's not really a lot of support or visibility for trans people, especially as far as Black trans people are concerned. So growing up and even into my later years of, you know, mid to late 20s, you know, I didn't really see any positive, so to speak, representatives of Black trans women, right? Until recently, we haven't gotten that representation.
Yeah.
And we've just gotten that representation within the last couple of years. And so for me, you know, I came out, you know, I came to the realization that like I had been suppressing that for so long, and I'm like, this is actually who I am, and I made the decision to kind of like, you know, talk to my doctor about it. Because it kind of like festered and there was a lot of shit going on in my life. that was a little rocky. And I was just like, I kind of like sat down with myself and realized that these are the reasons that I'm having these issues and feeling this way, because I'm not living, in my authentic truth and things like that. So come out as trans. But ultimately I pass out the gate as a Black trans woman. And, 2 years ago, we really start, talking about or hearing about the violence against Black trans women. And so for me, again, survival mode clicks in. And my biggest thing at that moment is I need to live a stealth life. And for those who are listening who don't know what stealth means, that means that you are a trans person, and this can go for trans masculine and trans feminine people. You are a trans person that lives underneath the radar. You're passable, be it by your own genetics and hormones that you're taking, or by the work that you've had done, be that body work or, facial work that you've had done, to become more passable, also known as blending in with, this society. And so that was my main focus at the time. And that meant safety for me. So again, here I go, living in survival and safety mode that that I've always done throughout my entire life. And I'm like, okay, like this is what I'm doing. And I'm thriving technically, I guess, in some way in, the STL, LGBTQI plus community here. And, everyone's like loving me and like living for me. And so, yeah, I'm like feeding off that attention a little bit. I then get into a relationship, which also makes it easier for me to, want to live this stealth life, because he is a cis white man that is straight, passing, he identifies as bisexual, but he's, hetero passing, if you will. And so we can pass as a hetero couple.
Mm-hmm.
And, I will say, like, even in that relationship, we did have our moments where like, yeah, like this is my trans girlfriend. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm trans. Like, you know what I'm saying? But it wasn't like really put out there to that level that I'm doing it now as an activist, and like really embracing that, I'm embracing my identity as much as I am now. And I think during that relationship, and towards the end, like, I really got to a point where, our relationship at that time had gotten so bad that I was just like, I really started feeling the pressure of what it is that my trans siblings go through, especially my Black trans sisters go through, in love, in career, in life. And I took a step back and realized that, I had a lot of privilege even in my transition via genetics, right? Via genetics,
Yes.
And I'm not one to like toot my own horn, but I think that I'm a fairly attractive trans woman. I believe.
Don't be shy.
I think that I am, passable to, the naked eye to most, unless like, I think that like you're really zooming in on me, and I sat in that because of safety, and survival again. And I was just like, I'm doing myself a disservice. I've experienced so much in my life, so many hardships and things like that. Who would I be if I didn't like take all of that shit and grab it by the reins, or grab it by the horns, basically, and own it and use the privilege that I have? Because the reality is too, now more than ever, like, media outlets, companies and things like that, they're more prone to talking to trans people that are passable or pretty. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
We see the Janet Mocks, we see Laverne Cox and all of them, you know what I'm saying, that are out there. But those are not like the girls that we know, or the trans women that we know back home in the hood, like I say. You know what I'm saying?
Because not everybody's passable.
Not everybody's passable. And not everyone reaches that level, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I just like, I sat in that and I was like, you know what? There's so much more that I could be doing. And I don't think that it was really until, my breakup with my first boyfriend as a trans woman that I really was like, Gabby, there's so much that you could be doing. Not only so much that you could be doing for yourself, but for your trans community and trans siblings. And so, recently within the last, I would say, year, I really got into being an activist for the Black Trans Lives Matter movement. And it's interesting, you talk about like the Black Lives Matter movement. Unfortunately, the Black Lives Matter movement has always excluded Black, trans, and queer people.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that, Black families and Black culture is very rooted in religion. Mm-hmm. And the Black family also raises men, especially Black men, to be the providers, do not be feminine, and all those things, and all the things that I experienced growing up as a child. And so I think in that movement, especially, and with Black women too, there's a lot of shame that they place on effeminate Black men or men who are gay or bisexual. You go to the Shade Room comments, any post that the Shade Room makes about someone that has had like some type of relationship with a trans woman or maybe bi or maybe gay, just go through the comments and look how Black women respond to it. So, there's a lot of shame and guilt placed upon Black men, Black cis men especially. And so, the community does not embrace Black and trans queer people. Simple as that. And so what you have that has happened is you have two separate movements happening right now. You have the Black Lives Matter movement, which is, mainly centered around Black cis men. I mean, and there's some Black cis women, the sad reality, Breonna Taylor was the pivotal moment that I really, really saw the Black Lives Matter movement embrace and really put on a platform a Black cis woman that had been murdered by police, but most of the time it's just centered around Black cis men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, you have another movement, which is the Black Trans Lives Matter movement. And the reality of it is like both of those should be synonymous and be able to exist together, because at the end of the day, we're all Black, and all Black lives should fucking matter.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day. But again, the reality is that, that movement and the culture, the African-American culture and Black culture specifically, I like to say Black, just does not rock with, it does not support, unfortunately, trans and queer Black people. There's such a disconnect. And like, I've done a lot of interviews where people are like, well, how do we bridge that gap? And we kind of like slowly see it happening, but very, very slowly and very, very, very minimal. I think that it won't happen until, again, we have Black culture that breaks away from such firm religious beliefs, And I'm not a religious person, and I don't knock anyone who is religious, but it is my belief that I think that religion was given to Black people, especially by the same people that enslaved us to control us. Mm-hmm. That is my belief. And I think that, religion sometimes can cause a lot of division when you really think about it. I mean, religion causes division. It has caused wars, and things like that. And it's just like, when do we take a step back and say, you know what, is this helping or is this really hindering us? Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can still be religious, but maybe releasing the reins a little bit and offering a little bit of acceptance to everything that, your God or your universe or whatever has created. Mm-hmm. And just being really open and sitting in that and being like, you know what, the next person, regardless if they're Black, purple, pink, whatever, that is a human being. They are deserving of life just as anyone else, and their life matters as well. But more importantly, especially if we have the same skin color, I think it's imperative and important that, we embrace one another and stand up for one another. Trans women are women at the end of the day. We're women. Mm-hmm. And if we're getting killed, then what makes it any different than, a Black cis man that's being killed,
Well, I want to touch upon like what you said about, Black women not really letting, creating this stigma around like femininity and
Mhm.
how toxic it becomes for a man to have to always be masculine. And, what that turns into is if, like, say they're in a situation where they do have a trans person in their life in some romantic aspect and they get caught with that person's in danger, right? Because
Absolutely.
they're put in the spotlight, their masculinity is getting called into question, and therefore we have these people that are killing trans Black women because of a
Because of
stigma.
that.
Yeah.
Because of that stigma. Absolutely. And the sad reality of it too is like when you think about the statistics and the numbers as it pertains to the Black trans women that are being killed, like I think, what is it right now? I think we're up to 38 this year alone.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Black trans women that have been murdered. But the reality of it is too, the sad reality of it is majority of those women that have been murdered this year have had relationships with the men that murder them.
Yeah.
And off the record, Robert and I have spoken about this, but you also talk about like the mindset that Black trans women that we have to have as far as, dating is very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're always living in this idea of fear that if I piss this man off or if I do something wrong, he may harm me.
Yeah.
And sometimes, unfortunately, that is the reality for our trans sisters. Like they are harmed and they're murdered. And again, like you said, Robert, and like I spoke to, a lot of that is because of the guilt and the shame and the toxic masculinity that lives on in society. And that's, it even spreads beyond, the Black community. But yeah, like toxic masculinity is a thing that is deadly. I tell people that all the time. Masculinity is deadly. Too much emphasis on it is deadly and can be harmful and is harmful. And so that's just, that's where we are. And so when we talk about bridging that gap, I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers. I can only be a vessel as far as like using my experiences and things like that to breathe life and speak to what is going on and try to help ease pain, make people knowledgeable, and then connect people as well.
And I know we talked about this earlier. We were actually talking about this today, but you just reminded me that I just want our listeners to be made aware of this, but it is not the responsibility of somebody for when you ask somebody, what can I do to help the Black movement or the trans Black movement or anything like that? It's not that individual's responsibility to educate you. You need to take the time to educate yourself. We have Google.
Absolutely. It's a free service.
We have plenty of books that you can read. It just drives me crazy. Like you're not required to teach people that, anything that you do or advocate is of your own free will. And like, I just can't stand that question.
Yeah. And a lot of people ask that, like, there's a lot of cis people, especially that are like, what can I do? Or like, how do I become a better ally? And like things like that. And I get like the question. Yes, it probably comes from an amazing and like great place. Right. But like you said, it is not the job of the oppressed, the already oppressed and marginalized, to educate others. You can kind of like just open your eyes and look around and see what's going on and kind of like figure out, okay, well, this is what I need to do as a person to support. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My biggest thing now is, especially with the Black Trans Lives Matter movement, as far as especially Black trans women being so fucking marginalized, is, I tell people all the time, there are a lot of funds out there a lot of GoFundMes that Black trans people have that, you know, either need money for therapy or need money for affirming surgeries or need money for rental assistance or housing assistance, whatever. There's so many funds out there. You want to help, pay a Black trans person.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people that all the time. There are a lot of like funds out there.
Exactly.
Do the research to find some. Pay a Black trans person. That's it, or donate to a fund that will benefit Black trans people, especially. Like that is the best thing. That's number one. Start there, and then also try to make yourself more inclusive. Also correct your friends around you that are probably transphobic or that can be transphobic. If you hear someone that's transphobic, correct someone.
Oh, and since you bring up that lovely point, I want to segue into the LGBTQ plus community being transphobic, and there's definitely a stigma within our own community, like, you know, the community that you would expect the most from fucking trans people over.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely,
just how it is so important to gay, straight, Black, white, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. We need to recognize that every single person has some type of privilege, and we need to recognize that privilege. And B, understand that just because you recognize that privilege, there's always going to be somebody that, or, you know, you recognize that you have your privilege. And if you are a marginalized person, recognize that there's probably somebody that's more marginalized than you.
Let me say this. I have never, and this is probably going to shock people. Again, Robert and I have talked about this off record, but I have never felt more disconnected. You know what? Let me say this. Let me say it like this. I feel personally that as a Black trans woman, I am more welcome and accepted by the cis hetero community than I am by the cis gay community. Really? And that's sad.
I'm not surprised.
Sad. And that's the thing. Like, you know, you talk to some people and people are like, I'm not surprised. Like, especially the cis white gay community.
Yeah.
The cis gay white community are a group of privileged. At the end of the day, you can take the gay out. They're just cis privileged
people.
Men.
Yeah.
I mean, men. Not, let me take out the gay. They're just privileged men at the end of the day. Cis gay men are just privileged men. You know, you can take out the gay. They're just privileged men. And I posted something about it on my story the other day. And it goes across all boards. But, you know, the reality of it is, especially when it comes to women, be it, you know, cis women or trans women, men, you know, are not interested in taking up for or protecting or supporting women that they are not related to or that they don't find attractive. And so when you think about gay men, like gay men typically don't find, you know, women or trans women attractive. So therefore we are out of sight, out of mind for them, you know. And, you know, there's a lot of misogyny. There's a lot of racism that runs rampant in the gay community anyway. So, you know, you add a trans woman to that. At the end of the day, I'm a woman. So, of course, I get the brunt of misogyny, you know, as well, and discrimination as a woman. So it's so shitty. And, you know, we try to do the work, you know, to change that. But again, like you said, Robert, it is not the job of the marginalized or the oppressed to have to really, you know, go out and educate people. You know, I use my voice. And a lot of people are like, well, isn't that what you're doing now? But yes, but I also use it at my discretion.
Exactly.
I do it at my discretion. You know, I can turn it on, I can turn it off when I want to, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and that's that. Yes, I can talk all day about certain things and do interviews like this and podcasts where people can come and gain knowledge. Do I want you in my fucking DMs asking me how to be a better ally? Absolutely not. All you got to do is
paying me.
Unless you're paying me. And, you know, all you got to do is like go through my story, or like I said, turn on the news, or, you know, do some research on Google, read a damn book. Actually, Layla, like read a damn book, and you can find out certain ways that you can become a better ally and become supportive of certain movements, especially the Black Trans Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. You know, because a lot of times when I have people come to me and they're like, how can I become a better ally? What can I do to support and da 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 da? What I'm hearing you say is, I know that I haven't been doing what I need to do, and I want you to hold my fucking hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's their privilege talking again.
Exactly. And that is privilege talking, saying that, oh, yeah, like, I need you to hold my hand and tell me what to do. No, do the fucking work.
Right, because everyone else has had to, everyone who's actually experienced this type of lifestyle has had to go through it and learn themselves. So I am not your messiah, and I'm not going to fucking hold your hand down this fucking lane. You're going to have to figure it out and learn. And I feel like that, like truly through learning through experience, is what's going to build the empathy that people need. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You're not going to understand if somebody asks you that and you tell them like you can do X, Y, and Z, or instead of that, you have you do the work and go through that shit yourself, you're going to retain that more than me telling you what you need to do. Like,
absolutely.
At the end of the day, like Layla said, like you're just asking, you just want the easy way out.
Mm-hmm.
So
you want the easy way out. And yeah, I can sit here and I can give you a goddamn
we all want
list.
the easy way out in our own way, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I've gotten to a point now where I'm not into giving easy way outs. I don't know. You know what? I'll sit here and be honest with y'all. I don't know if it's like some bitterness in me because I'm just like, I didn't have shit easy and sweet. Mm-hmm. And so you're not going to get it either.
I get like that too, though.
No,
I really do.
You shouldn't. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to recognize that you have privilege and you're benefiting from that privilege. And if at the end of the day, the worst thing that you have to feel is being a little bit uncomfortable, then count yourself fucking lucky.
Count yourself fucking lucky. I will say this. Robert may chuckle at this. Listen, it's no shade, like, but I just like, you know, in my last breakup, you know, my ex was like, oh, you know, I was paying rent and like doing this for her. And I'm just like, that is the least you could have fucking been doing for me as a Black trans woman. That's the least you could have fucking been doing. Shit. Like the least. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just like, what in the actual fuck? Like, again, privilege.
Yeah.
It's insane to me. And so, like, again, I think that, you know, doing things like this and having these necessary conversations and making them available for people to listen and learn and possibly take something away from it, those are the tools, you know, and these are the things that people need to listen to if they want to learn how to become a better ally and how to become supportive of that movement.
And I think it's so awesome, though, too, that you said earlier that even as a Black trans woman, you recognize that you have privilege.
Yes.
And you did the work to recognize that and take that and advocate for other people and do the work. So I just want to just, you know, recognize that and commend you for that because you did the work.
And I'm still doing the work. Like, every day. It's
a process.
It's a process, you know, of figuring out, like, what does Gabby need? And, you know, how does Gabby show up for herself? And, like, how does Gabby show up for other people? You know, in the things that I'm given and, like, being given, you know, like, there's a lot of very talented trans women in the city. You know, I know that for a fact, but I also know that I am one of the trans women in this city that are being given specific opportunities. And who would I be to receive those opportunities and not use it to uplift everyone else around me.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who would I be? You know, just to sit in that and be like, oh yeah, like this is what I'm doing and da 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 da. No, like I'm going to use these opportunities to uplift again my trans siblings, my trans sisters, and you know, one of the things that I always say is in the work that I do and like activism is, you know, making sure that we are reaching back. You know, yeah, we can proceed and ease on down the yellow brick road all we want, but who would I be if I'm not turning around and reaching back and pulling someone else forward or including someone else in the benefits that I'm receiving, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I'm also curious, can you kind of give us a little, so right now you're single.
Yes.
And kind of just giving us like a little navigation of like what the dating scene is like for you and the challenges and
oh God. You know what? I don't know. It's crazy. Like I said, I was in a relationship with my previous partner, or my last partner, and he was the first partner that I had as a trans woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you imagine like some of the things that I went through. It was very difficult. I remember being in that relationship. I was on oral hormones, just to give people like an idea of like what hormone therapy can be like. I was on oral hormone therapy and like, you know, taking pills every day. And then in my relationship, I switched over to injectable. And I remember like talking to my doctor at the time, and I remember like her being like, you know, are you sure? I remember she'd asked me even at the time, she was like, are you seeing a counselor or a therapist? And I was like, well, why? And she's like, well, you know, just for, you know, things that you know, may be experiencing or going through, you know, as a trans person, but also if you're going to go on injectables, like you're really upping the ante.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is a direct shot of estrogen to your body. And so, you know, we talk about like hormone levels and things like that. And, you know, being moody, especially like, you know, that's one of the effects of it, being moody and all this other stuff. And like, you know, there's also reports that, you know, in people's transitioning, their sexuality changes. And, you know, there's a lot of mental things that happen and change too, outside of the physical. And so like, again, you know, I was a person, you know, transitioning and like didn't have at the time the greatest support group. I had also like transitioned within a company. I was working in healthcare, and transitioned within a company that, you know, what I would say, I was in healthcare for 9 years. So like 8 of those, well, let's say 7.5 of those years, I had operated just as, you know, an out gay male and then transitioned. And so also it was a Jesuit institution. And so, you know, like, and having having someone like actually transition in the workplace and on the job, like, was just something that they were not prepared for.
Yeah.
And so that put a lot of stress on me. And I was like really going through some things mentally, anxiety. I was depressed. COVID hit. I left my job in last November, because I was just like, I checked out. I could not do it. I was just like, I was very unhappy, going through a lot of shit. I was put on, outside of my HRT regimen, I was put on Lexapro.
Mm-hmm.
And like that just made me a zombie.
Yeah, I mean, your chemicals in your fucking body are just don't know what the fuck's going on.
Don't know what the fuck is going on. And mind you, like, you know, this was in the first year of my transition. And so, and then I'm also trying to like,
how often are you getting the estrogen injections? at this point?
Every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. Yeah. So I do it every 2 weeks on Mondays. Every 2 weeks, I do an estrogen shot.
Where do they give you the shot?
Oh, I give it to myself. Yeah, you just give it to yourself. Like, you don't have to go anywhere and get it. But
just like your leg.
Yeah, like you can do it intramuscular. You can do it in your leg. I do mine in my but I rotate butt cheeks.
Oh, I could not give myself a fucking shot. I'm a nurse and I could not give myself a fucking shot.
Right.
Fuck that.
So it's just like dealing with all that and so I say all that to say that, like, during that time, like, and then, like I said, COVID hit. I didn't have a job, and I was just like, didn't know what I was like. I was mentally in a place. I cannot, like, it was insane. Like, looking back on it, I was just like, I was in such a deep, dark space at that time in my life, prior to what I would say fucking 6 months ago, maybe. Well, maybe no, not even that. Maybe less than that, actually, because I'm trying to think. Me and my ex broke up in like May, June. So yeah, so like I think after that, like, I kind of started to, like, really get into myself and, like, find myself and again, like, Robert and I have known each other. I think, Robert, you've probably seen the difference, like, night and day.
Yeah. Literally
night and day. I think that, and I'm not saying that relationship was, I think that I'm not saying that relationship was the reason for a lot of that, right? Again, I just feel like I did not have the support system, even in my partner at the time and my friends at the time, or just people that understood me and, like, could really see what was going on. We talk about depression and anxiety and what to look for in family and friends. But the reality of it is, a lot of us, unless you've known someone or dealt with that yourself, you really don't know what to look for. So a lot of times it looks like someone just being a dick, or someone rebelling, or someone just being an asshole, or someone just being a terrible person. But then when you really get down to, the layers of it, it's kind of like, oh, well, no, like, you were dealing with some trauma, like some past trauma, some life trauma, and, like, some shit. And this is why you were doing what you were doing. And so for me, being open to the idea of dating and, like, being in a relationship has been hard to navigate for me, because I feel like there's just so much that comes with my identity and as a trans woman. And I feel that, I still feel a lot of shame and guilt for some of the ways that I felt, or some of the things that I needed to experience, in my transition, that I was made to feel that I was a bad person for. It's hard to navigate. Just dating in general is, like, hard to navigate. Being in a relationship is hard to navigate, because I've been, I even at the end of that relationship, and then after that relationship ended, and Robert, again, I always say this, I hope y'all don't get tired of me saying this, but, like, me and Robert do know each other outside of this. So, he sees stuff. I don't know, Robert, I don't know if you remember, if you were following along, but, like, there was a lot of shaming going on towards me.
Yeah.
After that breakup of the things that I was going through, and, like, what I dealt with and what I had to deal with, and some of the things that I did, like, to survive, or some of the things that I felt I needed as a trans person to experience. There was a lot of shame, and so, like, living with that shame and guilt has been very difficult and hard to, like I said, to move forward, because that's a feeling that I never want to feel again. It was very traumatic for me, because I had felt that in my younger years. So, all it really did was dig up that old childhood trauma of mine that I had felt. And And it wasn't until then, that breakup, that I really like started seeking therapy and like moving and navigating through that. And I'm in a much better place now with it. I could, now I think that the Gabby that you get now and the Gabby that you see now is the more authentic Gabby, instead of the one that's trying to hide, behind a facade of being perfect.
Well, and you're doing the work. Like,
I'm doing the work. Yeah, like I'm doing the work.
Yeah.
Like that's really what it is. Like honestly, when you look at it, that's what it is. And unfortunately, I will say it took my past relationship, for me to really see that and like sit in that and be like, you know what? Like you got to deal with this past trauma. And if you're going to be this voice and you're going to be this face for this and that, you got to do the work and you have to face your demons and you got to let those skeletons out those closets and you got to talk to them and you got to silence them and say, you know what? Like, yeah, like you were part of my past and yeah, you helped me get here, but we're done. Like this relationship between you and I are over. Like this relationship between me and my demons and my trauma, it's over. Like you got me to this point and now we're here. Thank you.
Yeah. And I feel like we can't expect to show up for other people when we haven't shown up for ourselves. And like taking the time to speak to somebody, and I know I've said this like a million times, but just how great counseling has been, because it's investing in yourself and taking care of yourself, and you can't take care of other people or sustain a healthy relationship with other people when you haven't even dealt with your inner demons. And so like, I agree completely with you.
And if you don't have a great relationship with yourself, you can't have a great relationship with anybody else. That's just not realistic. That's not reality.
I'm a huge proponent of just everybody speaking to a therapist, but
oh, absolutely. Listen, I posted something earlier, I think, that I said along the lines of, I think it was a meme that I posted. I don't know if if you all saw it, but it was just like, don't send me nudes. I need to see like time receipts from your therapist session. So I know that you're working on yourself. So I know that you're working on yourself. Send me that first, and then you can send me the nudes.
That's a first date question.
Are you in therapy? Like,
yeah. Who's your counselor's name?
Mm-hmm. And listen, I'm going to be the first to tell listeners now, if you are dating someone and you want to go to like the couples therapy or want to do therapy together, or you want them to go to therapy and they say no, run.
Red flag.
That is a red flag. That is a red flag. Someone that says that they do not need therapy,
they need it the most.
They need it the most.
Oh my gosh.
If you don't want to go to therapy because you can't afford it. Like, maybe you're having some issues and maybe I can help you afford it. I don't know. Maybe we can work something out or we can do it together. But the minute you tell me that you do not need to see a therapist, oh, baby, that's a red flag on the play.
I saw this thing. It was a video and the person was like, isn't it funny how the people that go and seek therapy are the ones that are being, traumatized by people who refuse to go to therapy?
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
That is it. That's it. Yes. The ones who go to therapy, we are typically the ones that are being traumatized. Yes. Like you said, by people who refuse to go.
Yeah.
And so like, we talk about, dating and things like that. You asked me about dating, and like getting back to that is just like, it's hard. Like it's difficult. Like, I'm still dealing with that breakup. Cause like I said, that was my first, relationship as a trans woman. And I also think that, again, in me living this, this quote unquote people's princess type lifestyle, prior to where like, I really cared a lot about, what people thought. I think my relationship at the time too, And again, Robert can probably speak to this. My relationship was very public and out there. Like, everyone loved it, of course, because it was like that love story of a Black trans woman finding a partner, and like it was happy and like bubbly, but also that was on social fucking media.
Mm-hmm.
You were
Like,
Princess
no one knows.
Diana.
I was Princess Diana. Like, no one knows what's going on behind
Princess.
the people's princess. You know, like, no one really knows what's going on.
Robert's been
behind
watching
closed
a
doors.
lot of The Crown, so he's trying to work in as many references as possible.
Yeah.
I love it. No, I love it. That's why I said the people's princess too. I knew he would get a kick out of it.
Oh, shit.
But you know, like, that was my reality. And like, the other sad part about it is, like, you know, when we talk about the lack of support from the community, one of the things was like the lack of support for me in that breakup. And it was just like, I was made out to be like this horrible person. No one took into consideration, like, well, damn, like, that's not the Gabby I know. Like, something must have been going on, like, to you know, make her react like that or make her do that or whatever. Like, there was just really no grace given to me. But again, I think that is something that we see with women in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Women don't receive grace at all. Like, you know, we are supposed to be perfect and pristine, and like, we can't do things. We can't step out of line. We can't talk back. We can't, you know, and it's just a thing. And so it was very devastating for me to kind of like have to sit in that reality and realize that all these people that like called themselves like friends or supporters of me really weren't supporters of me, because, you know, they turn their nose up at me or turn their backs on me because they had invested so much in my relationship and wanted it to work for whatever reason. You know, it's almost like I was in relationships with a community.
Yeah.
You know, sadly, you know, and the minute that, you know, I make a decision that is for Gabby or for me, you know, I really feel like the community was kind of like, well, damn it, Gabby, you have ruined our dream. You know, and so I sat in isolation a lot, you know, after that breakup. And while, you know, some people may be like, I think in the beginning, like, it was very sad for me, but when looking back on it and like looking over these last couple months, I've experienced so much. I've grown so much. Therapy has done so much for me and opened so many doors for me. And I think that I've come out on top of it. You know, I look at that entire situation and I'm just like, I really am the epitome of turning lemons into lemonade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all about, you know, for me, it was all about just sitting in the fact that, you know I'm a good person at the end of the day. I know that I do nothing intentionally to hurt other people. Have I done some bad things? You know, someone asked a question on Facebook, I think like the other day, and was like, you know, someone asked you, were you a good person? You know, what would you say? And the thing of it is like, we're all able to be good and bad people. I think that when you start putting a lot of emphasis on being such a good person, it becomes robotic and unreal.
Yeah.
And you move into a direction of where you stop holding yourself accountable for your behavior, you know, because you're so focused on being like this good person. And like, yeah, I've done some fucked up things, but I've also done some really great and amazing things too, you know, and I learned from everything that I go through. And so, yeah, so that's just where we are. I you know, and really, I think that I'm really just focused. I'm focused on Gabby.
Amen.
And that's just it. Like, I want to, you know, I have a lot of projects that I'm working on right now. I have a lot of upcoming projects.
Anything you want to talk about specifically, or?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, like, without giving too much information, I am going to be, I'm going to start filming next year. Hopefully, you know, COVID allows us to, depending on where we are with COVID. Next spring, I will start filming in South Carolina, for an indie film. which I'm really excited about. That's going to be on Netflix.
Wow.
And super, super excited. Without giving out too much details, it's literally like the character. I'm the main character. I was cast as the main character, auditioned for it and got the part. I'm really excited. And basically it's like a love story drama about a Black trans woman that, you know, finds love in the midst of the Black Lives Matter movement with a guy that's like, you know, very into that. And so it really resonated with me, and I'm really excited and happy that I was chosen for the part, and I'm excited to start filming. Like I said, hopefully we're able to. And then just like some of my other collaborations that I've had going on with like local brands here in St. Louis and raising money for the trans community here in St. Louis and giving back. I'm going to be starting a fund here soon. Again, like I said, to help with medical fees or housing needs or food needs or bill assistance and things like that for Black trans people and Black queer people.
Mm-hmm.
So I am just like really trying to center myself and really just give back to my community and be a beacon of like, you can go through a lot in your life and turn that into something great.
Yeah.
You know, and just be a good person and just be a great person and stand in that truth regardless of what has happened over time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Any other questions you have, Layla?
No, I just want to say thank you for sharing your stories and, you know, your voice with us. Although we have a small platform, we hope that it grows. And, you know, your voice means a lot to us, and what you speak about your community and who you are is very important. And I think, and I hope that, you know, people do take this time to listen to this podcast instead of, you know, DMing you and asking, hey, like, how can I get involved in the, you know, Black trans lives movement, or how can I be more woke? They can listen to this podcast and listen to your story and really learn to empathize with it. So, I mean, I hope this is just one example of, you know, a good positive step in the right direction, and people can listen to this and start connecting with something bigger than themselves.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you. Also to the listeners, I do have a current collaboration. Like if you are one of those people, like I said, like Layla said, do not reach out and DM me and ask how you can get involved. There are a plethora of ways.
We will block you.
We will block you. No, there's a plethora of ways that you can get involved. Currently, I do have a collaboration that is running now with Arch Apparel, St. Louis here, in which it's a collaboration in which I designed a Black Trans Lives Matter shirt.
Ooh.
You can buy that via their website. And 100% of the proceeds are going to a local grassroots organization called St. Louis Metro Trans Umbrella Group here in St. Louis that does a lot of outreach and activism for the Black trans community and Black queer community here in St. Louis. So go buy some shirts, y'all.
Yes.
That is awesome. And then do you want to shout out your Instagram or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. So like if you're wanting to follow me on Instagram, you can follow me at Mava Souza. That is M as in Mary, U, V as in Victor, A, S as in Sam, O, U, Z as in Zebra, A.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gabby, for coming and talking to us today. When
Absolutely.
we return, we're going to get a couple cocktails, fix our wigs, and when we come back, we will end the show with our piping hot recommendations. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Gabby. It was so nice talking to you.
It was so nice talking to y'all. Thank you all so much.
I can't wait to meet you one of these days when I'm out of quarantine.
Soon. I know, right? Soon. Everyone, and also everybody, please wear your goddamn mask.
Yes.
Wear your mask, people. Wear them. And like, if you don't have to go out, don't go out.
Yes, it's as easy as that. This is
It's
the
as
perfect
easy as
time
that.
to put on your sweatpants and stay home.
And stay home and do something. Read about the Black Trans Lives Matter movement or how you get
read.
involved.
Read.
Work
it.
on yourself.
Yes.
Just work on yourself. Read and you can go to therapy. You can do therapy sessions at home.
Yes, that's right. Telemedicine visits, y'all.
Yes.
Go to therapy.
Yes.
Literally.
Ugh.
Because we could all use it. But yes, well, thank y'all. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
TipTea is presented by
Wait, Robert, we don't have any sponsors.
Shit. Well, let's go to plan B. Are you a local business or restaurant located in St. Louis or Chicago that is looking for some promotion?
Does the sound of our voices sound like cash flowing into your bank account?
If you said yes to any of these, then please email us at tipteapod.robert@gmail.com for further info.
Please sponsor us so we don't have to sell our souls to Jenny Craig.
Welcome back to TipTea Podcast. All right, so we are going to end the show today with our usual piping hot recommendations. Layla, do you want to go first?
Sure. So a lot of us are probably getting furloughed right now, or even more so working from home. I don't know about you, Robert, but when I'm at home, I like to always have something playing in the background. And I was very excited to see two shows in particular on Netflix, one being Chappelle's Show, which is iconic. I mean, there's only like 28 episodes, but like one of the most iconic sketch shows ever.
Wait, that's on Netflix?
Yes.
I did not know that. I'm so excited. Oh, fuck.
So I need everyone to watch it and then quote it with me. And then also Survivor's on there. So me and my friend, Jocelyn, shout out to her. We wanted to get into that. Because I don't know if you've ever seen Survivor, but I don't know. Something about the 2020 aura itself just feels very in line.
What, that we're literally trying to survive?
Yeah, we out here. It's no like desert island or whatever, or deserted island, but it's cray out here.
Okay, so speaking of Survivor, have you ever seen that show Naked and Afraid?
I haven't, and I want to. I really, really want to.
But do you know the premise of it?
I'm going to say they're definitely afraid and they're naked, but they're not afraid to be naked. Is that close?
That's really close.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's basically like a guy and a girl get taken on an island, like some remote area. I guess an island or just like some desolate remote area. And then they just have to like go from point A to point B, I think. And then, just survive in harsh conditions, but they're naked. They don't know each other. And then I think they can bring like one item that can be like, people bring like matches or like a flint and whatever. But you're allowed to bring one thing. So my question is if you were on that show and you had to bring one thing with you, what would it be?
So first question is, can it be a tool?
Yeah, I think it could be like, yeah.
Well, then joke's on everyone else. I'm bringing a hatchet. I read that book in 6th grade, and I'm pretty sure I could survive on a fucking island with a hatchet. So
I remember that.
So fuck all of y'all.
Oh, shit.
What about you?
Nail clippers.
Oh, bitch. Please. What are you going to do with those?
Clip my nails?
Yeah, but what are you going to do when you're not clipping your nails?
Using your hatchet?
You want to borrow my shit? Okay, we got an alliance now. I like that.
We could, I think, yeah, they're together. Like the two people are together the whole time. Yeah, I don't know how I would. And like, okay, so like at night, obviously it gets really cold and they have to cuddle. I do not know, like, okay,
Naked cuddling with strangers.
Not only that, but like a woman and like, okay, who's going to be the big spoon? Like, am I going to be the big spoon? Because I really don't want to be about that. Like,
you and your nail clippers can fight to be big spoon for sure.
Ugh.
Well, actually, I think we've learned something about you, and that is that you don't like to spoon.
It's not that I don't like to, like I do, but I just get like really hot and sweaty and like I don't like that. So like yeah, like I can cuddle for like 5 minutes and then I'm like I'm good. I'm good.
You're like I'm actually all set. Thanks.
Yeah, cuz I just get sweaty and gross and I'm not about it. It's yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, if it's like freezing cold, like you probably do need to cuddle.
Yeah, for warmth.
For warmth. So I guess I could do it. I just would be throwing up.
There's another show that I think it's on Netflix. I think it's called Stranded. Have you seen that? It's like somewhat similar, except they have clothes, but they truly like just drop people off in like the middle of Alaska somewhere. And they're just like, well, good luck. It's really addicting. And some of these people walk in there with some fucking like cojones on them. Like this one guy's like, yeah, I've been, backpacker for years, outdoorsman, conservation specialist, blah, blah, blah. And literally he's like walking on a rock and he slips and he breaks his leg in like 2 seconds. He wasn't even there for like very long at all. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, you could be literally so ready for the elements, like textbook wise. But then if you're an idiot and you don't know where you're going or you're not paying attention, you could literally be like out. And I think there's like a cash prize or something. It's crazy. And no one's near each other. So it's not like there's any alliances or anything.
Fuck.
It's literally just
I can't do
solo
that.
survival.
Nope. I need somebody to suffer with me.
Of course you can't do that. I couldn't do that either. It takes a very special type of person.
I would be talking to myself like... I think I should just be on the show just for entertainment about it. Like, I would just be like, what the fuck is this? What is this bullshit?
Right. Yeah, everyone's hunting. You're just like taking a bath in the river.
I'm just like, first I'm just gonna nap until this is over.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was one of my piping hot recommendations. And then the other one, as a joke, I was looking up like things to do in quarantine just to make sure I had like ticked all the boxes. And one of them, like a legitimate option from an article in USA Today, was text your exes in case you have anything left to say or some unfinished business. And so that's my next piping hot recommendation. Everyone, let's start some shit this quarantine. Let's get some Jerry Springer on.
Just open that book and
open that wound back up.
Read People for Filth. Remember me, bitch? I'm back.
I loved it. I thought it was so funny. I was like, yeah, you should definitely, if you're bored, start some shit.
Or message somebody like, I'm pregnant.
Oh shit, yeah.
Yeah, let's just do it. Let's do it.
You should text somebody and tell them you're pregnant. Let's see what they say. No, you know what you should do? You should go on our 10-year high school reunion Facebook page and say that.
Oh my God. Did you? I mean, I saw the thing today. I'm just like, gag me with the fucking 10-inch dick. Like, this is just.
Which part? The one that one person posted that was like, hey, we made it through this year without having to go to our reunion.
Yeah, I'm just like,
I liked it. I was like, yup.
I mean, it's funny. It's just, man, I don't know. Do we want to go into this? Do we want
to?
Save
it for a rainy day.
Do we? I mean, let's just go into it. Sure. I just, can we pick a classy place to fucking go? Like,
I think we've covered this before, have we not?
No, not on TipTea, but.
Oh, okay. Well then, yeah, let's cover it.
It's like, hey, happy 10-year reunion. Let's go to Red Lobster. Like, I'm not about it.
Here's the thing. If it was Red Lobster, I wouldn't have been so pissed.
At least they have cheddar biscuits.
Yeah, it was like some weird random Irish pub.
Helen's.
Yeah. No, we have definitely had this conversation, or I'm having deja vu.
We have, just not on live media.
Well, behind closed doors is coming out.
But I'm still upset. Like, I mean, where would you want to go? Like, I don't.
The casino, period.
Casino, yes. Or, even somewhere cheesy, like Dave and Buster's, I'd be about. Because you could play video games and get drunk and like, come on.
Right. At least there's like a video game in between you and like, your high school crush or something that you could like totally avoid eye contact with. Whereas if you're at like some shitty bar, you're forced into human interaction and conversation, and it's just harder to avoid certain people. I think we both agreed that if we went, we would have just made an appearance.
I think our plan was, we were going to just go for a second, say our hellos, look really good. And
our hellos for $70 each.
Yes. And then go out and have a nice dinner somewhere. But
that's how you know we're old.
But I just want to see who got ugly.
Oh, shit. Okay. Well, that's what Facebook's for.
Yeah, but I want to see it in person. And like, I want to see the tragedies. But I also want to see the what's the opposite of a tragedy? A triumph. I want to see
like an underdog moment. Somebody coming out.
Like the underdogs.
I was going to say a name, but I don't want the editor to do too many bleeps. But you know who I thought was like the sweetest, but also the nerdiest?
Yeah.
Please edit this name out. She's like a bad bitch now. She's a doctor.
Yes.
And I'm like,
yes.
Good for you, sis. But like, like that to me is like triumphant. Like, destiny.
I mean, let's be honest. I feel like the people that are not as good looking as they were in high school were naturally the assholes. So I don't feel bad at all. So
I literally peaked. It's all been downhill.
Really? I feel like the opposite. I feel like I've gotten better. Like
you have.
Not that I was an underdog, but like I feel like I'm aging like wine. Like,
yes, you are. I couldn't agree more.
And
you've experienced like a metamorphosis
from a caterpillar to a butterfly.
Yes, exactly. The gayest way to say that. Yep.
So my piping hot recommendations. Let's see. I am watching The Crown right now, and
I'm good.
Fucking addicted. So fucking good. I just finished season 1. I'm all about it. Like, it just sucked me in. Like, it's so good. So I can't wait. There's 4 seasons. So yeah, I just finished season 1 and I started in like 2 days ago. And then after that, I've heard so many good things about The Queen's Gambit. So I need to watch that. Probably the next time I record, I'll have started watching that. And then my other piping hot recommendation is a book. It's called Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. And she talks about like race and like America's caste system, and just like how we as a nation kind of have just like swept race issues like under the rug, and just how like that has caused like such a big problem in our country. And it is it's just so fucking good. And like, I started highlighting this book. I'm like, I'm going to highlight the important parts. And I was like, this is the worst mistake I've ever made, because like now the whole book is like a fucking highlighter.
Exactly.
Because it's all so good. And so, yeah, I mean, I think everybody needs to read this book, especially white people, especially straight white people. Yeah. I mean, if you're white, you need to fucking read this book. It's needed. It's high school required reading for sure. Like it's great. So yeah. And like you said, I mean, I think that we're going to be under quarantine soon again. So we're going to be watching a lot of TV, reading a lot of books, texting a lot of people we shouldn't be texting.
I literally downloaded like dating apps and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And you know what's crazy is people are actually like, so you want to go have dinner? And I'm like, where?
No.
Like, where are we going to go have dinner? Or, hey, do you want to go grab a drink? Where can we do that? And then they're like, oh, just come down to my creepy basement. Oh, okay. So I can, be murdered. Perfect. No, I'm good. Thank you. I've seen enough unsolved mysteries to know how this ends. The giant fucking question mark and no one knows where my body is.
If I was single and it was Christmas time, I think I would ask people on like dating apps, like, so like if they were like, you want to hang or do something, I'd say, well, do you want to come over and decorate a Christmas tree? And I can make some cookies and we can watch some Christmas movies.
Wow. You're literally already doing wifey shit on the first date.
Doesn't that sound cute though? Like,
I mean, it's cute as fuck. It sounds like a Hallmark movie. Not everyone's trying to, hang, what do you call it? Hang ornaments and chill.
Well, I mean, look, we could do the mistletoe after we do the Christmas tree, but like, shit's got to get done, and I don't want to do the Christmas tree all by myself. So I'm just trying to be efficient.
Do you hear that?
What?
My fucking cat.
No.
She's since broken down her like wall that I made so she wouldn't go into that room to make noise, and now she's breaking in. So I apologize for any sounds in the background because I've literally done everything I can. Apart from closing her in the bathroom.
That's the next step.
Honestly, I'm so close.
That's why I can't have a cat. They're just too independent.
I like that for me right now because obviously I tried to have a dog and that just didn't work out with my schedule. I wasn't home enough to really give it the nurture that it needed. So, but like also when you have a partner, like let's say I had a partner. Oh, do you hear that?
Yeah.
This fucking bitch. Okay, pause.
Okay, you're back.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
My ass. Yeah, as I was saying, cats suck.
Yeah, I'm ready to not have any pets for a bit, but
yeah. I feel like if you have a partner, then you have somebody else at home. So it's like, okay, well, I have my partner here, so I'm not as lonely. But me, now I'm on the second, I'm on cat 2. So that tells you how lonely I am.
I'll be your cat.
Okay. Meow.
Oh, but yeah, so I think that's it for our episode. You don't have any more piping hot recommendations?
Nope, just wear a fucking mask and stay home, bitches.
Please, so this quarantine can get over with.
I'm really over it. I'm so over it. And when I say I'm over it, I mean like I'm over the fucking waves of, cases coming and going. It's like it's never ending. This is really going to turn into a year and a half, 2 years of a thing. And the first year isn't even over yet. We're literally a few months away from March, almost a year to the date of when this all started happening here. How crazy is that?
And nothing has gotten better.
Right.
I mean, we'll have a new president, but
Will we? I don't know. Sounds like Mr. Orange Cheeto Head does not feel like conceding, which I don't even know what the legality of that even is.
Once the electoral college meets and they actually do their voting, I mean, it is what it is. Like, he can't like contest it once they count their shit officially, then it is what it is. And then we can kick his ass out of the White House. So
fucking men. Boy, bye.
Boy, bye. All right. So everybody, if you want to check us out on our website, go to www.tipteapodcast.com. You can also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for TipTea, that's one word, podcast. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at tipteapod.leilaz, that's LEJLAZ, or tipteapod.robert@gmail.com. I think that is it. Stay safe.
If you're still listening, I was just going to add, if you're still listening, look out for some cool stuff coming our way on our website soon.
Oh, yes, the merchandise. We got the designs are getting finalized. We're trying to get some samples, and then, we will.
Yeah, and then you can cozy up in some fucking TipTea merch and drink some TipTea. How about that?
I mean,
how about that?
Next to Ivy Park, this is the merchandise to have.
Next to those juicy sweatsuits, this is the merch to have.
All right, everybody, stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.